Lest Darkness Fall continues as read by the bathroom reader. I'm covering for the Plurality Report, who says, on with the castle doctrine. Let's go! Chapter 18. Back in Rome, Urias said slowly,
Yes, I see your point. Men won't fight for a government they have no stake in. But do you think we can afford to compensate all the loyal landlords whose serfs you propose to free?
We'll manage, said Padway. It'll be over a period of years, and this new tax on slaves will help. Padway did not explain that he hoped, by gradually boosting the tax on slaves, to make slavery an altogether unprofitable institution. Such an idea would have been too bewilderingly radical for even Urias's flexible mind. Urias continued,
I don't mind the limitations on the king's power in this new constitution of yours. For myself, that is. I'm a soldier, and I'm just as glad to leave the conduct of civil affairs to others. But I don't know about the Royal Council.
They'll agree. I have them more or less eating out of my hand right now. I've shown them how, without the telegraph, we could never have kept such good track of Bloody John's movements, and without the printing press, we could never have roused the serfs so effectively.
What else is there?
We've got to write the kings of the Franks, explaining politely that it's not our fault if the Burgunds prefer our rule to theirs, but that we certainly don't propose to give them back to their roving majesties. We've also got to make arrangements with the king of the Visigoths for fitting out our ships at Lisbon for their trip to the lands across the Atlantic. He's named you his successor, by the way, so when he dies, the East and West Goths will be united again. Reminds me I have to make a trip to Naples. The shipbuilder down there says he never saw such a crazy design as mine, which is for what we Americans would call a Grand Banks schooner. Procopius'll have to go with me to discuss details of his history course at our new university.
Why are you so set on this Atlantic expedition, Martinus?
I'll tell you. In my country, we amused ourselves by sucking the smoke of a weed we called tobacco. It's a fairly harmless little vice if you don't overdo it. Ever since I arrived here, I've been wishing for some tobacco, and the land across the Atlantic is the nearest place you can get any. Urias laughed his big, booming laughs.
I've got to be off. I'd like to see the draft of your letter to Justinian before you send it.
Okay. As we say in America, I'll have it for you tomorrow, and also the appointment of Tomasis the Syrian as Minister of Finance for you to sign. He arranged to get those skilled ironworkers from Damascus through his private business connections, so I shan't have to ask Justinian for them. Urias asked,
Are you sure your friend Tomasis is honest?
Sure he's honest. You just have to watch him. Give my regards to Mathas Waintha. How is she?
She's fine. She calmed down a lot since all the people she most feared have died or gone mad. We're expecting a little Ameling, you know.
I didn't know. Congratulations.
Thanks. When are you going to find a girl, Martinus?
Padway stretched and grinned. Oh, just as soon as I catch up on my sleep. Padway watched Urias go with a twinge of envy. He was at the age when bachelors get wistful about their friend's family life. Not that he wanted a repetition of his fiasco with Betty, or a stick of female dynamite like Mathas Waintha. He hoped Urias would keep his queen pregnant practically from now on. It might keep her out of mischief. Padway wrote, Urias, king of the Goths and Italians, to his radiant clemency Flavius Anicius Justinian, emperor of the Romans. Greetings. Now that the army sent by your serene highness to Italy under John, the nephew of Vitalianus, better known as Bloody John, is no longer an obstacle to our reconciliation, we resume discussion for terms for the honorable termination of the cruel and unprofitable war between us. The terms proposed in our previous letter stand, with this exception. Our previously asked indemnity of 100,000 solidi is doubled to compensate our citizens for damages caused by Bloody John's invasion. There remains the question of the disposal of your general, Bloody John. Though we have never seriously contemplated the collection of imperial generals as a hobby, your Serenity's actions have forced us into a policy that looks much like it. As we do not wish to cause the empire a serious loss, we shall release the said John on payment of a modest ransom of 50,000 solidi. We earnestly urge your Serenity to consider this course favorably. As you know, the kingdom of Persia is ruled by King Khusrau, a young man of great force and ability. We have reason to believe that Khusrau will soon attempt another invasion of Syria. You will then need the ablest generals you can find. Further, our slight ability to foresee the future informs us that in about 30 years there will be born in Arabia a man named Mohammed, who, preaching a heretical religion, will, unless stopped, instigate a great wave of barbarian conquest, subverting the rule of both the Persian kingdom and the East Roman Empire. We respectfully urge the desirability of securing control of the Arabian Peninsula forthwith, that this calamity shall be stopped at the source. Please accept this warning as evidence of our friendliest sentiments. We await the gracious favor of an early reply. By Martinus Padway, Quaestor. Padway leaned back and looked at the letter. There were other things to attend to. The threat of invasion of Noricum by the Bavarians, and the offer by the Khan of the Avars of an alliance to exterminate the Bulgarian Huns. The alliance would be courteously refused. The Avars would make no pleasanter neighbors than the Bulgars. Let's see. There was a wandering fanatical monk who was kicking up another row about sorcery. Should he try to smother the man in cream as by giving him a job? Better see the Bishop of Bologna first. If he had influence in that direction, Padway knew how to make use of it, and it was time he cottoned up to that old rascal Silverius. And should he go on with his gunpowder experiments? Padway was not sure that this was desirable. The world had enough means of inflicting death and destruction already. On the other hand, his own interests were tied up with those on the Italo-Gothic state, which must therefore be saved at all costs. To hell with it, thought Padway. He swept all the papers into a drawer in his desk, took his hat off the peg, and got his horse. He set out for Anicius's house. How could he expect to cut any ice with Dorothea if he didn't even look her up for days after his return to Rome? Dorothea came out to meet him. He thought how pretty she was. But there was nothing of the Hail the Conquering Hero about her manner. Before he could get a word out, she began. "You beast! You slimy thing! We befriended you and you ruin us! My poor old father's heart is broken, and now you've come around to gloat, I suppose." "What?" "Don't pretend you don't know. I know all about that illegal order you issued freeing the serfs on our estates in Campania. They burned our house and stole the things I've kept since I was a little girl." She began to weep. Padway tried to say something sympathetic, but she flared up again. "Get out! I never want to see you again. It'll take a squad of your barbarian soldiers to get you into our house. Get out!" Padway got, slowly and dispiritedly. It was a complex world. Almost anything big you did was bound to hurt somebody. Then his back straightened. It was nothing to feel sorry for oneself about. Dorothea was a nice girl, yes, pretty and reasonably bright, but she was not extraordinary in these respects. There were plenty of others equally attractive. To be frank, Dorothea was a pretty average young woman, and being Italian, she'd probably be fat at 35. Government compensation for their losses would do a lot to mend the broken hearts of the Anitii. If they tried to apologize for treating him roughly, he'd be polite and all, but he didn't think he'd go back. Girls were okay, and he'd probably fall one of these days. But he had more important things to worry over. His success so far in the business of civilization outweighed any little failures in personal relationship. His job wasn't over. It never would be until disease or old age or the dagger of some local enemy ended it. There was so much to do and only a few decades to do it in. Compasses and steam engines and microscopes and the writ of habeas corpus. He teetered along for over a year and a half, grabbing a little power here, placating a possible enemy there, keeping far enough out of the bad graces of the various churches, starting some little art such as spinning of sheet copper. Not bad for Mouse Padway. Maybe he could keep it up for years. And if he couldn't, if enough people finally got fed up with the innovations of mysterious Martinus, well, there was a semaphore telegraph system running the length and breadth of Italy, some day to be replaced by a true electric telegraph, if he could find time for the necessary experiments. There was a public letter post about to be set up. There were presses in Florence and Rome and Naples pouring out books and pamphlets and newspapers. Whatever happened to him, these things would go on. They'd become too well-rooted to be destroyed by accident. History had, without question, been changed. Darkness would not fall. The end. Thank you very much for listening to a one-take toilet top audiobook production of Lest Darkness Fall by Lyon, Sprague de Camp. I have been the bathroom reader, and me, along with the Plurality Report, will come back to you soon with our next audiobook reading. Thank you very much again, and goodbye for now.